Hey, here we go. Hi, everyone. Dan here with John Schrader, and we're ready to get started with the Designer Show. John, what do you got to say today?
It's a hot day in Minneapolis.
That's right. You're in town today.
Yep.
You've ventured down from up north to, and you're hanging out in Shakopee right now. What is the temperature out there?
Actually, Chaska.
Chaska, okay. What is the temp out there?
I don't know. On the radio, I heard it's a heat index of 99.
Okay.
So 90 something.
It's gone up a little bit, huh? Wow. All right. So today on the Designer Show, I had wanted to have some guests, but it didn't work out today. So we just kind of decided to do an unscripted. But what I'd like to do, and I was just talking to John a little bit about this, is let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you do in your business to make more money, I'm looking for my words here. Make more money to satisfy your clients, to get happier clients, to just basically, I'm going to say hug your clients, and I'll explain that in just a little bit on what I mean by that. So one of the things that you guys can do is go ahead and type in to the questions, and by all means, this is kind of an open forum. So if you have questions about marketing, about sales, about chief architect, which a lot of this happens to, a lot of times it comes down to chief architect, because that's what John and I do all the time, is talk about chief architect. So we'd be happy to answer any of those questions today. So well, I'd like to start out and get the conversation rolling a little bit. And I see we got April Cohen on here. Hey, April. A friend is having an issue with the project information not being retained when using a layout sheet as a template. Can you help? All right, April. I'm going to need just a little bit more information. What kind of information is not being retained? Are you saying when she opens the layout, the plan is gone? If that's the question.
Or the project information that you put in under tools for the client and designer.
Yeah. Okay. If it's that's a little bit different thing. So
Yep.
There's lots of different things that can change when you're working on a layout like that. But let's just kind of go back to a little bit here and talk a little bit about design and the selling of design and the product of design. What is that product? It's the end product is what? It's a finished construction job. Okay. What is our role in that? Okay, as designers, and our role in that is to bring a plan, a good plan that fits a budget, that can be built on time, that can be, that works for the client, that works for everybody involved. So what are some of the things that go into creating that? And I've got this little spreadsheet that I've used over the years that kind of has always helped me to define some of those things that go into creating that project. And I just want to run through this. And I was trying to get this as a download for you guys, and I was having some trouble with the files here. So you're going to have to allow me to do this afterwards. So I'll get it posted and let you guys know when it's available. Let me go ahead and show my screen. John, you're familiar with this. I think you've seen this, this spreadsheet before. And everybody's going to do this stuff a little bit differently. But let me zoom in on that a bit so you can see it. And so when we get into a design project, it's not just a matter of drawing some plans. All right. What are all the components that go into creating that plan? John, we've got, feel free to jump in here anytime. And what I'd love for you guys to do, okay, April, I see your question there. We'll get to that in a little bit. Hey, Jay, how you doing? Nice to hear from you. Hey, Bill Murray, nice to see you here. And again, you guys, please ask your questions here. This is open forum today. So, but again, when we get into designing the project, what is it that goes into the process of the design? It's not just a matter of drawing up some stuff for a plan. A lot more goes into that. And I want to talk about that in just a minute here. But, we're going to do we're going to run through an initial consultation, and we have to come up with a budget for the project somehow, some way. We have to come up with a budget. We're going to measure the building. We're going to come up with a conceptual plan. We're going to do a preliminary planning stage where we get deeper into the planning process. Final plan, working drawings. What goes into a final plan? John, you've drawn a couple of details here and there. You know what goes into a working drawing. So it's a lot of work. And then if you're the contractor or if you're the designer that has these other services that go with this, you're going to be doing the estimate, proposal, contract, documents. You might be doing the interior design, the furniture, the colors, the carpeting, those kinds of things, helping the client pick out all of those materials. There's going to be structural engineering, things like that have to be done. So when we just look at that short list, yeah, it doesn't look too bad. I mean, there's a lot of things going on there, but let's break that down a little bit more. So let's just kind of talk about each of these categories a little bit. And again, John, once you watch the questions and
Yep.
can you bring the questions up? Can you display them?
I don't think so.
Okay, just tell me the name of who's
Yep.
asking and we can kind of get into that. So I just want to spend a little time on this and then we'll jump into your questions. I see there's a couple of chief architect questions here already. So when we get into that initial consultation and quick quote, what does that all mean? Well, I don't know about you, but I can't design a project unless I know a client's budget. All right. So, if they're doing a room addition, their budget's $40,000 and they want to do a $100,000 room addition. Well, we got to have a little meeting here about reality. What is the reality of the situation here? Either the project gets downsized quite a bit or the budget gets increased a fair amount or somewhere in between maybe. So that becomes part of it. And that, when we talk about quick quotes, this is a little thing I used to use. And again, I'll get this sheet uploaded for you guys to download. But I would go through this little simple process of, I had all these different categories that I would list out, and I would just pop a number in next to each of these items for the project. It was basically a swag method of coming up with a number that we can use to design to, unless, some of you guys are going to be, yeah, that's about $100,000. I mean, you've done it enough. You just know. I mean, John, you get out to a job, you kind of just know what that's going to cost, right?
No,
you can't just pluck a number. You can't just swag
I could
it.
just pluck a number. Yeah, I could do that.
You can do the WAG.
That'd be wrong, but I could do it.
So you do the WAG method. That's the wild ass guess method.
No,
where this is more like
well, that's
swag.
what you're asking me to do.
Yeah. This is swag. This is kind of scientific wild ass guess.
Okay.
So we're actually going to break those guesses down into smaller segments. So, you might have some demolition and you might just say, well, the whole demolition is going to be, $2,000. Or you might want to break it down more than that. You might say, well, we got to remove some foundation and that's going to cost a certain amount. You got to do some appliances. You could spend a little more time going through more detail.
If nothing else, you could use this to show your client what your assumptions were when you first met.
Exactly.
Exactly. And then show why it ends up being a lot more than what you first assumed it would be.
Yeah. So this, when we talk about, I hear this all the time from clients, and I know you do too, John, is that, the client won't tell me the budget. Okay. My statement on that is you have to know the budget. You cannot design a project without knowing the client's budget, unless, they're wealthy and there is no budget. And I've had clients like that too, where there's just, whatever.
Well, and if that's the case, they need to be paying you for all your work right from the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah. So then there should be no question. Your rates just went up by double.
Well, not necessarily saying that, but if they're not willing to share information with you, you're just kind of shooting in the dark.
You really got to know a budget.
Might as well go buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah. You guys on the call, how do you go about asking for the budget? Do you just flat out ask for it? Do you go through a process that you like to do? I'd love to hear your feedback on how you guys ask for the budget. Again, one of the things that I would do is I would kind of get some information. I would get some information from the client, get something in my head of what I thought the project was going to be, what I understood it to be. And I would type up, a little description of it. And then I would get into this quick quote where I just go through, foundation, it's a room addition foundation. I know I've done enough of them to know it's going to cost $6,000. Okay. So I just pop that in here and then, we've got some concrete work. Yeah. It's probably going to be about 4,000 in concrete. And I would just run through this process, framing, Again, I have it set up so you can do it as kind of like a bid, just a number you pluck out, or you could break it down a little bit. So if you threw out some square footage for the basement, the floor, those kinds of things. And then, you're going to have a window package. So the window package, you've done enough of these, it's going to be $8,000. And you just work your way through this process of all these different categories and the different elements in the category. In the categories, and you finally get to the bottom, and you're going to come up with a high-low number. All right, and you notice I said high-low, not low-high. Let me get to the bottom here. Actually, I got to go to the summary. So I have it worked out right here. So here's where I plucked in those numbers. So I had these different categories. This is what I used to use when I did contracting, and so we've got a high and a low number. And I would just adjust that high-low number right here and just put a little number there. And this worked pretty well for me. I would show this to the client and I'd say, yeah, this is, your job's going to be 18,000 to 16,200, or it's going to be, 180,000 to 160,000, whatever the numbers end up being, because I've only plucked in a couple numbers here. And so the idea was that, okay, I would do medium, low, high is what I would do. That's right. When I would only do when I would do two categories, I would go high, low. So the idea was, first of all, the idea is that the customer will remember the first number you tell them. Okay. So if you tell them it's 16,000 versus 19,800, guess what's going to happen the next time you have a conversation with them? They're going to say, yeah, you remember you told me it was 16,000, versus if you say 19,800, they're going to, this is really silly too, and it works. Have you ever done this, John? Where you've done that?
Give them the high price first?
Yeah.
Not since I've learned about this. I haven't really tried that. No.
Okay. It tried sometime. It really works. It feels awkward as heck because you're used to giving a low high number.
Right.
And
they remember the first number.
Yeah, exactly. They really do. Yeah. I've actually done that for years, and it really, really works. So highly recommend you give that a shot. So this was just a way for me to come up with a quick range of what the project would be, so that, now I know we can continue. Okay. So I've spent maybe an hour with the client doing this, or I've done this on my own back at the office. And then we get back with the client and say, this is what I think it's going to be. Is that within your budget? Okay. Is that what you're thinking? And you just got to have some line in the sand that says, this is where we got to get to, or we can't go past it, that sort of a thing.
Yep. April says she just flat out asks after getting a basic idea of the project.
Exactly.
Some people might not have an idea, they don't keep up with what it costs to build houses and stuff. So I guess one of my thoughts would be, and I've never had to do this really, but if you think it's going to be 200,000, ask them if 250,000 is too much. If that's seems reasonable for what they want to invest.
Exactly.
You start putting numbers out there if they're not willing to give you one.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do that. I know Michael Stone has some really nice ways in his book, Markup and Profit Revisited, or in his sales book. I think he talked about that too. And there's a lot of other people out there. Just get some sales training if you're having trouble asking people what the numbers are. But you got to do that. Yeah. So you've got Park West. Amen to the budget. Yep.
Yeah, he's got another good comment down there. Clients are never shy about asking how much you charge. Why would you be afraid to ask them what their budget is?
Yeah. It's not like you're asking them how much they make. Right. You're just asking them what their budget is.
Right.
Okay. That's really true. Really true. Jeff always gives a high number first. Yeah. Way to go, Jeff. Okay, let me get back here. Never have budget conversations on the phone, always in person. Yeah, I think I agree with that, Jeff, to a point of that. It depends on how busy you are, first of all, and it depends on the type of project. Okay, so if it's a bigger project, yeah. But if it's like, hey, I want to do a 10 by 16 room addition on the back of my house with 2 windows and a small deck, that's the kind of thing you can come up with a range pretty easily. If it's done right. I mean, again, you want to do it in a nice way. You don't want to be forceful or say, hey, are you stupid? You can't do it for that much. Anyway, so anyway, just kind of scrolling through here real quick, and again, so we're going to have that initial consultation, all right, and you're going to have time, and I've just set this up so I could put hours. I'm not going to pop hours into this right now, but this is one way that would help me get to. I would always kind of run through in my mind 3 different ways to price a project. Okay, it was my way to come up with a number. If you just charge hourly, which I do a lot of that too, I just, I think it's going to take this many hours and I charge this much an hour. That works too. John, are you doing more of that, or are you doing more project based these days?
I'm doing probably half and half.
Okay.
Right now.
So yeah, architects, well, we'll get to that in just a second. So let me just roll down this list here a little bit. So someone's got to measure the building. All right. If you're doing a remodel, if it's a new home, it's a whole different ballgame. But again, someone's got to do the discovery on a new home. Okay. So, when you think about the time you spend doing an as-built, that's kind of like discovery. And when you do a new home, you've got to discover what's the lot, what's the setbacks, what's the, which way you're going to face it. There's a lot of work that goes into deciding where that building's going to go on that lot. When you get into an as-built, someone's going to have to go measure the lower level, second level roof. So I just kind of threw all these different things on here as to, you're going to do the landscaping. You're going to add for high detail, electrical, HVAC, mechanical. I think Al Fry was just on a call on a webinar with Scott, where he talked about he charges more for that. What just happened to my screen here? Changed. Color. There we go. And so you can kind of break that down as to how much detail you're going to put in your as-built. It's going to be a quick walkthrough measure, or you're going to put some real detailed time into it. Now, I know contractors also that will do a quick as-built. I mean, they'll get some rough numbers, do kind of a good plan, but they know it's not perfect yet. Get their estimates done, get the proposal done, get the project sold, knowing that they're pretty close, but they don't go into construction until they go back and remeasure the job and redo the plan, or at least fix the plan that they've got. So they verify everything. So there's lots of different ways to do it. I've always been of the mindset, you go out and get accurate dimensions right away, be done with it, then everything you do from that point forward is done. So someone's got to pay for that as-built. Then we roll into the conceptual plan and ideas. Okay, so you got to come up with the ideas. John, how many times have you done a plan where you've done 10 different versions of the same plan, showing a little different variations?
Most of the time when I do that many different versions is because I'm not charging the client enough to start with. You know what I mean?
What do you mean? No.
So they think that, well, they didn't really charge me anything for this, so it must be okay just to keep making changes. But when I've charged enough for a project, it seems like people are normally better able to kind of settle down on what they want and not want to see so many different changes. If they know that they're going to have to pay for my time, then it just seems like I don't have to do that many changes.
Yeah.
So I might do five. And 3 to 5 seems to be about the normal thing.
Some clients really know what they want,
right?
And others kind of like, well, I don't really know what I want. So you got to give them lots of different ideas and different options. So,
yep.
And again,
and tell them part of this price includes two 90-minute meetings online.
Or 2 changes, or this or that. I mean, you got to put some form of a stoppage into your proposal that said, you just can't leave it open-ended. So,
right.
I mean, I've done that where I've had clients that just could not make up their mind, and 30 changes later, we're still working on the plan. Even if you're getting paid for that, it's frustrating as all hell.
I turned a job one time over to an interior designer, and she told me later that the lady spent her budget on interior design work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she had to say, we need to make some decisions here. Because you've already spent your budget.
Interesting. Charles says people are reluctant to give a budget. I'd say some people are reluctant to give a budget. I think if you ask correctly, most people will give you a budget without too much difficulty or a range. Everybody's got a budget in their head. They've got a budget. No one doesn't have a budget. I mean, they know what their monthly payment can be. They know how much money they have in the savings, and they're going to turn in some stock. I mean, part of finding out a budget too is, hey, where are you guys getting the money from? That was actually that one of my questions back when I was selling contracting was, are you guys planning on financing the project, or is this, have you saved up to do the project? That really kind of helps if they're financing, they might have a little more flexibility if they're dead set on just using savings. John, what were you saying?
I don't remember.
Okay, if it comes back, sorry. Anyway, Bill says he has a 3-level plan, each level with a separate layout page. I want a single note schedule rather than a separate note schedule for each floor. How can I do that? All right, we're going to get back to that in just a minute.
Jay, back to your thing that you have up here right now. Jay's asking why the rate change between the work items, and would you charge the same rate if you? I've seen this list probably for the last 5 years. Would you charge the same rates today? If would you have that same?
No, rates are a lot higher now.
Right.
So basically, they're $120 down the list.
So
that's what I charge.
To answer Jay's question from my perspective, I noticed you had a lower per hour rate for conceptual up at the top.
Yeah, that should probably be higher, actually. Think about it.
So part of my thinking on it would be, you're doing conceptual stuff, you might just kind of be shooting the breeze a little bit, getting to know them, that kind of thing. Maybe you don't want to charge them the full 120 for that or whatever. I know sometimes when I'm doing a plan, especially if I'm on line with them and I'm struggling to get chief to do something, I know how to do it, but I got to go back and remind myself, I'm not going to charge them the full rate for that hour.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you'll end up being fair. Well, everybody I think is going to do that to some degree, where they end up being fair with the client.
So if you go ahead and set that at $80 instead of 120, or 95 instead of 120, you can just take the time across the board and not have to.
Yeah. I don't know why I had it set up with different numbers at the time. It seemed like a good idea, so I just left it that way. So anyway, as you roll down here, you got the final, preliminary, which is more detail, final plans. That's where you can do all your detailing, structural stuff, all of that. Then you've got your project estimate proposal. Someone's got to do that. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. Mostly the contractors do that. You've got interior design specialist. I'm an okay space planner, but I don't do interior design. You don't want me to recommend colors. I can guarantee that. And then other things, structural engineering, surveyor, soil tester, variance, sun study, drainage study, other fees. There are probably lots of other fees that can go on here these days. And I mean, in some states like California and Colorado now too, it's just the amount of work you got to put in just to get permission to do a plan is nuts. Right. So I mean, this list could go on in the permit prices they charge. It's all pretty crazy. Anyway, so that's going to bring you to a number that you can look at and say, well, yeah, it's going to take me 100 hours to do this job. That's $12,000. Okay. In my case. And then I can say, well, let's take a look at it based on a square foot cost. So how many square feet you got? You go 12 feet at, what's the range on square foot cost for doing plans? I've heard people do plans for 50 cents a square foot, all the way up to $7, $8 a square foot. Depends on the services that you offer in doing that. So that can range quite a bit. So if you have a 1,200 square foot thing at, $350 a square foot, that's going to be a whole different price. But what are you offering for that? So you want to keep that in mind too. And I get that asked all the time. What's the typical square foot cost for plans? And, it depends. What's a typical square foot cost for a car?
What's a typical set of plans?
Yeah. It's just like, what's in that set of plans and how much information do you need? What kind of project is it, et cetera, et cetera. So it can vary quite a bit. And then design, you hear this percentage of project quite a bit. What's the percentage of the job? So if you're charging 5% on a 2,000 square foot job, that on a $500,000 house, what's that fee going to be? So that can all change. That can all vary. Okay. And then course, you're going to have some sort of a payment schedule too. So this is this kind of a sheet. I wanted to throw this out here, get you guys thinking about this kind of stuff again. And that got me thinking about this kind of stuff. All right. How to get paid more for your design services. And, to me, this is kind of one of the big ones right here. Recognize and believe in the value that you bring to the marketplace. Okay. A lot of you guys are out there doing this stuff every day. Like me, I've been doing this for years. John, you've been doing this for years. And I know that you sometimes forget that you know a lot of stuff. And, if the clients don't know what size headers go where, or, the codes on windows, the codes on joists. I mean, all of this stuff that we've learned over the years, some through trial and error, some through by making mistakes, some by doing it, by going to school and learning it. But we put a lot of time into learning all this stuff. So it's, recognize that. Okay. I can't emphasize this enough, you guys. You're here today to learn how to do this stuff better.
I'd like to hear from some other people too, but what's some of the other things that brings value to it?
Yeah.
You talked about our knowledge, but there's also the peace of mind for the client and the contractor.
Yeah.
To know that their thoughts and wishes are being communicated effectively. Yeah. So what's some other things that other people see that is valuable for what we do?
Yeah, I'd love you guys' feedback. Educating the client on what goes into a good plan. Okay, so this is another thing I think a lot of people miss. I think there's a lot of assumptions out there that people understand that, you got to have a plan, and plans are a lot of work. People don't know that. A homeowner, someone building a house or doing a remodeling project, what they see is the final plan. In many cases, they don't see the 10 revisions that we've gone through, the hours and hours and hours of trying to make this sizing and this massing and this windows and the roof and everything work correctly. They see this, they had an idea, and you show them a finished idea. And they don't see the 20 hours you just spent getting to that finished thing. And it really is helpful to educate the client a little bit on what goes into creating a good plan. Learn how to sell. I think a lot of people just assume you're not born learning how to sell stuff. There's classes that you can learn for this. Look up Tom Hopkins. He's got a lot of video on YouTube. Sandler is another way to sell. There's just lots of information about how to sell your services. Learn how to ask for the order. That's one that a lot of people are afraid to ask. And I still struggle with this. It's going to be $10,000 for that plan. It's like, but you got to learn how to ask for that order, and that all of this stuff kind of goes into play. Learn how closing ratios work. Okay, you talk to 10 clients that want to do a project. You tell them what goes into creating this. 3 of them might stick, where you're going to go get that. You got that job, so you created that ratio. So you got to understand how many leads you need to get in order to get enough projects to do what you need to do. Learn how to hug better. All right. This is relating to a book that I've read, been listening to. I like to listen to a lot of audio. And so let me get to that page. So it's on my page. If you go to where the show is being hosted on my website, I didn't send out an email today. Damn it. Silly me. Anyway, this will be here, and I'll have this up in my blog too. But there's a book on YouTube, Hug Your Customers. It's really interesting. It's not all about physical hugging. It's all about the things that you do that make your customers feel good and to like you and to want to do business with you. And let me give you a little example of when I was growing up as a kid. I would work at my dad's Kelly station. I started there in 7th grade, pumping gas and cleaning up, and the next thing I'm pumping gas and changing oil and changing tires. But when a car pulled in, we'd pump the gas, we'd wash all the windows of the car, not with one of those handle things, but we'd actually take a sponge and we'd take a squeegee and we'd wash it, and it was clean as could be. We'd check the oil, we'd smile, we'd have a conversation with the customer if they wanted to. When we changed the oil on a car, we would vacuum the car. We'd wash the windows inside and out. we just really, I mean, I remember some cars were so full of crap that I had to clean out. It's like, but I did it and I enjoyed it. So, I surprised people.
They really brought the car there to get it cleaned out instead of getting oil
Pretty
changed.
much, yeah. There were some, I think, that did that. So anyway, as a designer or a contractor, what kind of things are you doing? Okay. Some simple things: return your calls when you say, on time, smile. That's a simple one, but a lot of people don't do it. They're busy. They've got a lot on their mind and they forget to smile. Be nice. Show up on time. If you're not going to show up on time, call ahead and let them know that you're running late. Nowadays you got to wear masks, shoes off, and shoe covers, or at least ask, about that, so that people can say, yeah, we're concerned. Okay. Respect their home, respect them.
The shoe covers, Dan. I saw an ad a while back. I forget what it was called, but it was basically a deal that you just throw on the floor and step on it, and it wraps itself around your shoe, so you don't even have to slip anything on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, to look that one up.
Yeah.
All right. Use checklists to help your client. Learn how to be a great question asker, not a good question asker, but a great question asker. Because that's really what your job is. Your job is to ask the right questions. Okay. Send postcards. You met with the client, maybe thank you, pop it in the mail, that kind of a deal. Use checklists to help your clients. Okay. So when with a lot of my clients, I would have a kitchen checklist, a bathroom checklist. It gets them thinking. Maybe teach them how to use House and how to use idea books in House. Help your clients understand project costs, how to use Loom to communicate. We've talked about that in other shows. Loom is that deal where you can record videos. So you could record a video showing your plan and some of the ideas you have. Use the Chief 3D model function. So when you're in Chief, you can go to the export, and you can export a 3D model or a panorama. Okay. Those are really cool tools that help your clients understand what they're doing. And I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this. So, here's a good one: licenses, credentials, testimonials. Yeah, I had a presentation book, and I would hand my client about 20 testimonials, or not testimonials, and phone numbers of people that they could call and check me out if they wanted to for different kinds of projects. So that was always kind of fun. And see what else we got. These different rates for secretarial, drafting, design work. Yep, Bill, there we go, talking about the different pricing that you do. So feel free to chime in here. And what kind of things do you do to hug your clients better? And I really recommend that book. Get the audiobook and listen to it while you're going from job to job or something like that. The context of that book, How to Hug Your Customers, has nothing to do with construction, but the concepts that this guy talks about and what he did in his business to become one of the largest clothing retailers in the USA and probably in the world. And they still do it today. It's fascinating. Just really gets you thinking about what you can do to hug your clients a little bit better. So I highly recommend it.
Yep. Jeffrey has a good point there, and then we probably should get on to these chief questions.
Yep.
We're going to run out of time fast. But
yep.
He just says it's very important to learn to say no, not a good fit. I carry a short list of small contractors that might be able to help when a client's budget is too small. And he gets referrals from that too.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that networking is really important.
Or if it's a client you don't want to work with and you think they're going to be a difficult client, then get your list of people that you don't like very much and recommend them.
That's not true.
Oh, I know.
Because the next guy, if you can't get along with a person, the next guy might get along with them just fine.
That's true.
It's amazing how many friends I have that can't get along with each other.
That's true.
I get along with them all just fine, but they can't get along with each other. It's just
Yeah, I know what you mean. All right, so we've got 25 minutes. Feel free, guys, to chime in here about any of that content we've already kind of discussed. And I just wanted to bring that up because it was on top of mind right now because I'm listening to that book about how to hug your customer. And it's good stuff. I mean, one of the things that I would do on all my projects was we had a clean job site. Clients love that. And actually, I loved it too because it made it a lot easier to work on the job and a lot safer. So keep that in mind. All right. So
Probably should scroll right back up to the top and start there.
yeah, what do we got? So let's talk about chief architect a little bit. And then again, if you have other questions about things, let me know. Project information not being retained when using the layout sheet as a template. Now, the project information.
It's the designer info and the client info. That's not sticking.
Right. So there's one thing you need to be aware of when you create a template. All right. And what you could do under tools, here, let me go open up a layout sheet. All right. So when you go up to tools, and let me switch to page size. All right. So we got some information here. We got new home plans 4. So there's a place for client information.
And so we can see the whole page.
Oh, thank you. And there's a place for your customer, your company information, and a place for client information. Now, on page 0, you want to put these fields. Okay, so I've got a field here, and you see where it says client name in between percentage signs. That's a macro. Macros are created here, and on the layout page, we can put. Actually, we want to go to contact info. So we have client info and designer info. Okay, client info, name, company, phone, all these different fields. And those are the fields that you want to use for that. And those are all defined. Those are predefined macros. And the way you fill those in is you go to tools and you go to project information and designer information or client information. I'm going to put client information in here, and here's where you put customer name. Spell here. I can't spell. Maybe I try to go too fast. It just doesn't work. You could put a phone number here. Okay. Email, street. Okay. City and state. Okay. And that'll show up here automatically. So I have it set up in my template so that when I do that, it doesn't matter which size page I use. That information is always going to be there for all the size pages I'm in. So if I switch pages midway through doing something, or even at the beginning, I don't have to go re-enter the customer information. Now, April was saying project information. Okay. This is customer information. Project information is different.
That is what she was talking about.
Project information.
The client info and the designer info isn't sticking when they open up a new layout.
All right. So the client info should. The client info won't, because once you open up a layout from a template, it's reading from whatever you put here. Now, what I'd recommend you do, and I'm going to change this in my template, is just hard code your templates with your company name on them. Unless you remember to do this. And this is why I'm changing my mind on using this function here. I mean, you'd have to fill in your designer information every time you open a layout page, unless you do this. And that's a preference setting. Okay, so you go to preferences and you go to text and you define under preferences and text, you define the default designer information. Okay. This is a preference setting that affects the computer that you're working on. So if you take this and put it on this computer and then you open this on a different computer, the information probably won't be there. All right. So this is a preference setting. So you can set that on your computer. Here's all that information. All right. And that'll open up every time you open your template, that information will be there on that computer. Now, if you go open this on a different computer where the preferences aren't set, this will be blank, much like this was blank before.
Isn't there a way, Dan, when you go to save that as a template too now, that you can ask it to keep that information?
Not if you're using this. This has to do project, the designer and client information has to do with just this file. You can't, this information won't be stored in a template.
But can you just go through the steps one time so you can clarify for me what I've been seeing then?
All right. So when it comes to your company information, go to page 0. And what I recommend is you just hard code, just type it in on the page. Just don't use the macro. I'm still using it here, but I'm not going to use it anymore. And I use it here because I'm all set up and ready to go. All right. But if you use my template, that information will be blank when you get it because the preferences on your computer aren't going to be set up. So if I go to preferences, and I know I'm kind of not explaining this. This is a real kind of one of those tricky things to discuss. So if I go delete this, and I go delete this, and I go change this, okay? Okay, so I'm changing my default information, and it didn't change it on this particular one. But if I open a new one, and I switch to my page size, now it's picking up what I just put in my preferences. All right. So if you took a template and you've done that same thing where you put the information under project information, designer information, you put the information here, this only sticks for the current plan that you have open. It doesn't stick if you make a copy of this and put it on a different computer. At least I have not gotten it to do that.
Do some changes in there and then go and save that as a template.
Okay. Okay. So let's go to tools, client information. So again, it got to be a point where, okay, so it got to a point where it just became easier to just hard code it onto the plan itself, onto the template itself. So, okay, so I've changed my address a little bit there.
I'll save it as a template.
So now if I go save it, okay, as a template, here I could go file, save as a template.
Yeah, go to templates and yeah.
Save as a template, and again, I'm gonna uncheck everything here.
But you got client info there that you could keep. Well, unchecking it's gonna keep it. You want to keep it, so you want to uncheck it. And I guess you don't have any company info.
No.
Okay, but client info you do.
So if I set this template as a default for Imperial Layouts, which is fine, I'll go ahead and do that. Click OK, and I'll rename it, and I'll call it my test template. Okay. I do that 90% of the time. A before the L. Okay, so there we go. So now if I close that, let's close out the layouts, and let me open another layout. Okay, so if I go File, New Layout. Okay, so it held that information. Is that because I changed it in preferences?
And we didn't have any client info in there.
Yeah, that's because I changed my preferences. If I didn't have any of this stuff here,
right,
then this all would have been blank. Because the first, whenever you open a new layout, it's going to read it from preferences, not from your info up here. You have to set it on your computer here.
Right.
Text defined. And if you do that, you should be good to go on that. Again, just hard code it on page 0. Just go to page 0 and type in your address and stuff like that. Put your logo there and be done with it. I've found that just to be the easiest. Then you don't have to think about it anymore. I do use for client information. I do always use the blank fields. I do use the project info, client info. I will fill this form in, and that saves, that information does save with the layout. If you open this on a different computer, I believe it is going to still be there. Okay, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Yep, she says that might help, so.
Yeah, give it a shot. Again, worst case, just, set out up here and just put your client information there, and again, call it done. Just try to reuse the same boxes each time. I was just trying to make use of Chiefs macro. Everything else should work fine and saves with the project just fine. All the page titles and all that kind of stuff works great. All right, so that was kind of a long-winded answer to that question, but it's really confusing on how they did that.
Your answers need to be shorter. We're counting down on the time here.
I know. What do we got?
Bill had a question.
What does Bill have?
His question was about schedules on different pages on the layout. Where is it exactly here?
I have a 3-level plan. Each level will be on a separate layout page. I want a single note schedule rather than a separate note schedule for each floor. I want a single. So you want a note schedule for all of the floors, not just a single floor. Okay. So a note schedule is when we go into our plan and we put in a note. So in my template, I have a note already set up already. So if I go into the text tool and I choose note, so I'm going to go to the text and choose note, and this is how we can create a note schedule. And I start adding notes to the page. So I might go here. Here's note number 1. Again, I'm just going to do gobbledygook because it shows up quickly. All right. Keep in mind that there are settings for these things here. And I got to remember where that is again. That defines which floor we're going to have on our schedule. I think it's part of the schedule. So when you go to the schedule, the way you create a note schedule is you can do it by going to the schedules and grabbing a note schedule right here. You bring that onto the plan. Right, so let's go do that. Let's go click a new one. Let's go to the schedules, get a note schedule, click here, and you need to open the schedule and define which categories it's going to include. And then you want to say which floors the object's going to include which floors. So we can uncheck this and specify floor number 1, floor number 2, all the objects, or you can specify which floor and check that. And let's see, include object from all floors. So if you check this in, it'll do the whole plan for whatever you specified here. Okay. It'll do all the floors together. I don't think it'll specify which floor it's on. Okay. So you're going to have to do that yourself. All right. Oops. So when I look at the note, I don't have any option to specify this is on floor 1, floor 2, floor 3. I suppose you could put it as part of the note if you wanted to. This is on floor 1, floor 2, or just keep it going. So now if I create another floor, so if I go build a new floor, and I go put some more notes on the second floor. Okay, and I click OK. I should have down here, I should have another note for number on the next floor. But again, it's not going to tell me which floor it's on. I'll have to do that manually.
Yeah, he's asking to be able to put that same note schedule on all 3 floors. Or on the layout.
Oh, on the layout?
On the layout.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a couple different ways. I don't know if we make copies of it, I think it screws up the numbering. Let's see here. Yeah. So now it's, 1, 2, and that's not telling us which floor it's on or anything. It's just doing that. So
the way I do it is have a separate viewport for the schedule.
Yeah.
And I can put it on the layout wherever I want it.
That's exactly what I was going to suggest. So when you send this to a layout, so let's go ahead and save this plan, and we'll just call it notes. And we'll open a layout. So when you send your floor plan to the layout, okay, so I'm going to send this to the layout. Click OK. And so there's that floor plan and the note schedule. So just make a copy of your floor plan, pull that off to the side and crop over everything except the schedule. You could even put the schedule in a CAD detail window if you wanted to. Schedules in the CAD detail windows do stay updated. So there you go. So now you could just copy and paste that onto every page of your layout that you want it on, and you'll be good to go. So just do a hold, paste, hold position, and put it on the next page. So you really, you have one schedule that will show up for all the floors.
I do that for most of my schedules anyway, because that way I can put it on the page wherever I want.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you can move it around, put it wherever
Yep.
you want. And I keep a lot of my schedules in a CAD detail window. So
Why don't you show us how that works real quick?
So if you do that, just go to your floor plan and go to CAD detail window right here. And that just creates a blank screen that you can put things in. So I'll create a new screen and I'll call it, maybe I'll just call it my schedules. You could also just put your schedules off to the side on your floor plan. I've done that too.
That's usually what I've been doing.
Yeah, but now I could put my schedule in that. So I could just copy that or create it here. And there it is. So I got to make sure I turn that layer on. Schedules, so it is. Let's go create one. Maybe that doesn't work for the note schedule. I don't think I've done that for the note schedule.
Okay. Well, maybe we can cover that another time.
Yeah.
We got a.
Oh, here it is.
Putting fixtures on a foundation.
What kind of fixtures?
See where they have to put plumbing through the concrete, like a toilet and a sink and that kind of thing.
To show the plumbing layout?
Yeah, so the plumbers can see where they need to put their vent stacks coming out of the concrete, and the toilet, where the toilet's going to be in the concrete. I believe that's what it was. I didn't write down who asked the question.
So I know when I do plumbing layouts on concrete, it's a whole separate plan view.
Right.
So that's 1252. So let's just do something real quick here. Let me just.
Do you show plumbing fixtures on your foundation plans? And if so, what is the best way to show them in Chief? The way I've been doing it is using the floor reference. I made my own floor reference file or layer set, and I changed the colors to all light gray. And I'm just putting that floor reference on that foundation. And you can dimension to some of the things. Some of the things you might have to put lines on there to dimension to. But that seems to be working pretty well. That way, if something changes, like if I change the placement of a toilet or something, it's going to change rather than using a CAD detail or something like that.
All right. I mean, I can kind of take that question a whole bunch of different ways. What you're talking about doing with the floor reference tool right here, and setting up a separate floor reference layer set,
right,
with the right colors, can work just fine.
And the right amount of things on it.
Yeah. So you turn on and off the things that you want in that reference. I do a lot of times. I will have a separate layer set. So let's go create a foundation real quick, and I'll just show you this as quickly as I can. So let's go build a new, I want to build a foundation.
And to clarify, Dan, when I'm doing that, I'm doing a mono slab and using the foundation to create that mono slab.
Yeah.
My toilet on my first floor doesn't show up on the.
Yep. So understood. So if I go up, so let's do that. Let's just show that concept. So if we go up here on the first floor and we place a fixture, in this case, get a toilet. Good. All right. So there's a, come on. Just my good old Kohler Wellworth. Okay, so there's my toilet. And I want to, on my foundation plan, must have bumping turned off. on my foundation plan, I want to show where the plumbing should be on that, because it's going to be a slab on grade, or slab with footings, or just maybe it is the foundation plan that you need to lay out the plumbing. So if I go down a floor and turn on my floor reference, you see it shows up there. And what John was talking about was creating a separate floor reference that you could refer to. So what you would do is go make a copy of the layer set. It could be any layer set, actually. So I could copy this set if I wanted to and say, this is my architectural plan, 1/4 inch reference. Okay, and I could then change all the colors on this reference. I could select all and change all the colors to whatever color you want. I'll just go bright red for the sake of this demonstration. So you see all the colors are now changed for the new layer set. Remember, layer sets are just groups of items turned on and off. Okay, and then let's see, I go to I would want to create a new plan view. Let's see, how do we do this again, John?
Plan view. Go,
yeah. So we're going to make a copy of the plan view, right?
Yep.
And we're going to call it architectural plan, and I'll call it my floor reference. All right. And click OK.
And then I think you're going to have to get in your project browser and open that.
Oh, that's right. Yep. I haven't done this for a while. So then we go to our plan views, and we go to our floor reference, and we edit this view, and we're going to select our reference display is going to change to the one we just created. So which would be the reference. All right. So now I'm using that reference. So that plan view set is bringing up that reference.
Yep. And I turn that to light gray and maybe even make it all dashed lines.
Yeah.
I turn on just the bare minimum of the walls I need. So it's usually just the toilets, sinks, and walls that I would include in that floor reference.
So you're turning on just the layers that you need for that reference. So basically what you're doing is you're kind of overlaying the first floor on your foundation plan. Or you could overlay your first floor on the first floor. No, you can't. Can you reference the same? We can't reference a plan on the same floor, can we?
I don't know why. I don't know why you could.
Oh, yeah, there I am. So I'm referencing that same plan. Anyway, now you could go ahead and dimension a lot of these things. So you should still be able to snap to these items. So there's a center there. So then you could dimension.
Some of the things you can, but I just had a thought. If you dimension that on your actual floor reference layer set, and have the dimensions on a different layer so that they just show up on your reference,
that's how I tend to do it.
Then it would be done. You wouldn't be dimensioning it on your foundation plan. You'd be dimensioning it on your first floor reference plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how I generally do it. So let me see if I can get to this really quickly here. I know we're running out of time. This is a large project that had a lot of plumbing that needed to be laid out. And to do that, I created a layer set. See if I can find it quickly. Let's see, did I do a plan view or did I do a layer set? I don't remember. Plumbing dimensions, 1/4 inch view. So I've done so many changes on my layer sets here with this. Yeah, so here we go. So all I did was created a new plan view, calling up a different layer set that just has plumbing dimensions turned on. Okay, so I created a plan view, and I have that, and then I had to create a new set of dimensions in my default sets. And so when I switch between the different views, so here's my plumbing layout, and here's my typical layout. So I'm just basically turning on and off a different set of layers and a different dimension set, default set for dimensions.
Yep.
So that works well too. All right, got time for one more quick question.
There was a question about layers with the layer manager. Where was it?
When I click something, dimensions active display does not only show the dimensions, The active view, okay. When I click something like dimensions, active display does not only show the dimensions. I still have to go and scroll to find them.
I think they're talking about in they're getting a whole list of their whole list of layers in their layer management
Okay.
instead of just the things that are pertinent to what they're looking at. So here's the previous question. When I click on something in Chief Architect, it no longer shows only that in the active displays. That's the same question you just had up.
Yep. Okay. When I click something in i.e. dimension. When I click something like dimensions,
yep.
The active display does not only show the dimensions. The active display. I'm sorry.
So go to your active your display manager, your layer manager that would be up on the right
layer
side.
Manager. This one.
Yeah. So it's not isolating that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you need to go to your layer manager on the side here. So you want to just see dimensions. You don't want to see the whole list. Okay, so pay attention to the gear icon down here. All right. So this little gear icon allows you to adjust how this looks over here on your sidebar. Okay, so if you want to see just the item that you're clicking on in the layer manager, go and make sure that you don't have show all layers turned on. Make sure that is unchecked. Okay. With that unchecked, then whatever you click on.
Can you take down the question? We can't see where you're at.
Oh, sorry. I got it. Okay.
There you go.
So again, I've activated the layers set on the side window by clicking on that icon. That brings it up in the side window. And then down here, we want to turn on. So whenever I click on something, it just brings up the layers for that item. Okay. It doesn't bring up all of the layers. So you have to go to the gear icon down here. Make sure this is not checked in. Do not turn on show all layers. Okay, you can look at all these other ones and turn on, so you can make the layer display here look just like it does when you click up here and open it. So you can have everything the same, but you only want to see the items that you're clicking on. So I hope that answers that question. So I think we got it.
I think you did.
All right, awesome. All right, guys, I think we're done. Thank you everybody for being here today at our Designers Show. And I hope some of that information was helpful. I just wanted to get you thinking again about the value you bring to the marketplace. Check out that book about hugging.
I was going to say, what's the name of that book again?
The book is, again, if you just go.
And you have the info on your web on the.
It's on the website on the page where I have this displayed. If you just go to Amazon, go to. Hug your customer, and it's a book by Jack Mitchell. And again, I'm an audio book guy, so I always listen to audio. Highly recommend it when you're driving. It's a good listen. It's probably a good read too, but it's a really good listen. So I think you'd enjoy it. It'll pop up lots of ideas about how you can hug your customer. All right, you guys, this is Dan and John with the Designer Show signing off.
I just have a quick thought.
Oh, go ahead.
In the stressful time that we're in, if you're not used to doing it, make a point this week to smile at 10 people that you don't know.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
I like that one, John. Good one. I do that all the time when I'm riding my bike.
Yeah.
I smile at people and they smile back.
Well, we all need encouragement right now.
I agree, man. It's so easy to forget to smile.
Yep.
So, all right, everyone. Actually, here, I'll show that screen again. There you go. There's the book, Hug Your Customer. All right, everyone. Bye. See you next time.
See ya.